All right, thank you for joining us here on our pilot episode of the Pick Your Brain podcast with Johaz from Diag Savage and the Dirty Science crew and myself, Weekend Gabe. Thanks for joining us here on the show. Johaz, how you doing, man?
Oh, yeah, man. I'm good, man. Relaxing, man. Really excited about the launch, man. Shedding light on the West Coast,
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. Thanks for joining and roping me in on this project. I'm really excited.
Yes.
As a lifelong fan of West Coast, especially gangster hip hop music out of the West, and then evolving into all the Souls of Mischief, the Merses of the world, yourself,
Yes.
Exile Blue. It's like it's really cool for me. It almost feels like a kid in a candy store. So I'm really excited to be part of this. So
yeah, West Coast, man, we're like a melting pot, man. It's so many flavors, man. It's lyricism, it's gangster shit, it's party music, it's whatever you want, and it's still, even though it's worldwide, a lot of shit on the West Coast is regional. Like, you would have to be really embedded into the West Coast to really understand it. And that's why we want to put some more understanding on the West Coast culture to the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So when we're brainstorming, no pun intended, we were talking about kind of like what we wanted this show to represent. And I think what we're mentioning is like sort of the culture, the legacy, the innovation, the style, the delivery, the influence, all those components, and talk about not necessarily the chart top selling artists that everyone knows, the Snoops and the Kendricks, but like the innovators and the people who really stamped their place into hip hop culture and music. And we wanted to get some of those stories. And so I think that's the journey and the road that we want to travel with the Pick Your Brain podcast.
Yeah, true indeed, man. We're excited, man.
Absolutely. So we got a great show up tonight. We were expecting another member of the Visionaries crew, but nonetheless, we still have a superstar DJ, world DJ champion, super producer. He's everything and anything, and also everyone's best friend. DJ Rhettmatic joins us here on the Pick Your Brain podcast. You can now open up your window and join us on the visual part of the show. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Yes.
So the check's in the mail. So thanks for that nice intro and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look, I got babies to feed, and this 9 to 5 isn't really cutting it. So anything additional, I'm waiting on the Uncle Joe stimmy. So when that drops in January, it's gonna be on. So all right.
Yes.
Let's all cross the way. So yeah, thank you for having me. Pleasure, Gabe. Johaz, that's my brother. What's up, guys, man? Shout out.
Appreciate it. Well, we were hoping that we would have two Mex join us because you guys are part of the Visionaries crew, and you guys back in November just dropped your new album, V. It's the first album you guys recorded or project. I think it was like 15 years together. Is that
like,
is that number?
It's like 13, 14 years since we had our last album. Our last album dropped in 2006.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What is that like coming back together after all those years?
Well, I mean, we've never, like everybody thinks we've broken up. We've never broken up. We've been performing. Yeah. We just never recorded music together. I mean, obviously during that time, like Joaz, this is like, everybody, it's one thing to be in a group, but sometimes, like everyone's tend to like,
branch off into other things. Yeah.
Sometimes what you can't do in a group setting, everybody's at different stages in their lives. Like some people got married, some people had kids, whatever, whatnot. And I only can speak for myself and stuff. So basically, I kind of got burnt out a little bit. And I just kind of like for me as as a individually as a DJ and a producer, I wanted to learn, I kind of want to learn how to kind of branch out and like actually grow and stuff like that, because I mean, a lot of people, obviously a lot of people know me more also as being part of the Beat Junkies and, being as a DJ and stuff. And no one really knew me as a producer really. So I kind of like wanted to kind of, people know I made beats, but never really, really produced outside of the Visionaries, really. So
yeah. I mean, I remember when you sent us that that beat CD for the Deep Rooted project, I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know you had beats. You know what I'm saying? And then, since then, I've always been a fan. Yeah, he sent us about like 20 beats, man, crazy beats. And I was like, oh shit, Red got beats.
Yeah. So, I mean, So, I mean, I just wanted to more venture out, at least for me, stuff. I needed to grow. Like I said, I was burnt out. The guys wanted to keep on making albums, but I wasn't, like ready. So I mean, and I needed to grow. For me, I needed to grow as a man, as a human being, and stuff like that. So it's just a lot of things and stuff. So, but like, we've always done shows together. But so, and it obviously during the time, people, some of our heroes, friends start passing away and stuff like that. And there was there were some urgencies. Some of the guys were like, "Yo, we need to make an album where one of us, pass away." And then eventually something happened with Tumex. So Tumex,
shout out Tumex,
yes. So Alex, he eventually, had a situation where he had diabetes and stuff, and had to get his one of his legs amputated. So that kind of like really like shit that set the storm, like, oh shit, I mean, plus some of us got also same thing, love, family passing away. So it's just we're getting older, so we're so
you gotta treat every day like it's last. You don't want to leave any stone unturned, you know what I mean? And
totally.
Because, I mean, you guys kept the engine going. I mean, like, Elemental probably put out, like, what, 20, 30 albums in the last 10 years, probably.
I mean, honestly, between Elemental and Tumex, they're the ones who are like machines in terms of just putting work out, like, artwork. I mean, like, not artwork, but, like, music. They're just like that. They're like recording machines,
But I can understand what you're saying as far as, like, the burnout. Because I remember I tripped out when I saw you on the Brotherhood Creed shit. The hell of a. How did you hook up with them cats? How did you hook up with them?
Well, basically, so it's crazy. Yeah, a lot of people don't know I was part of Brotherhood Creed. It's so my best friend Ty is also one of the members. So and the lead rapper's his MC name was the Mac.
Wow. Okay.
So he's from we're all from Cerritos and stuff. So he was a dope MC from around the way and stuff like that. So he was making a name for himself as a lyricist, but I used to know him as one of the best poppers in where I lived. He was a best popper. I mean, sure, like Charlie Rock, because Charlie Rock was Vicious Beat Posse, right?
Beat Posse, yeah.
So anyway, so when I started getting more into like during the time, Joaz, this, like during those times, like from the 80s to you were doing at least 2 or 3 of the elements, so
you couldn't just be one guy. You had to know how to dance a little bit. You had to rap a little bit, do a little beatbox, something.
Little scratching, if at least put a record. Put a beat on a record.
Only one homie had. Where I live, one homie had the DJ, so it was like he was stamped as the DJ, as the turntables. Like if a motherfucker had turntables, it was like, oh
yeah. Well, but the craziest thing is like, so I was started, like eventually getting into more, like I've always been intrigued about producing and stuff, or like, so I was kind of doing scratches and stuff, like I started to do scratches for people's songs and stuff. And so I was working with this particular producer that I met from one of my friends. That was one of my old friends from my old mobile DJ group. And the irony, he was a house producer, but he can make hip hop beats and stuff. So he was making this hip house record. And he says, "Do you know any rappers?" And I'm like, at the time, some of the rappers I couldn't have, like locally, they didn't rap no more, except this one rapper was named the Mac and stuff. And Ty. Ty Johaz?
Yeah, I know Ty. Yeah, I know Ty.
So Ty was good friends with the Mac and stuff. They were good friends. So I was like, "Yo, man, do you think you'd be interested in rapping over, that?" So I got him to come over to meet with the producer, and he rapped on it and I scratched on it. It was a hip house song. I forgot what it was though. But and then
That shit's
eventually,
crazy.
it became like he made a track which became Hellava, which really was a demo and stuff. And so he said like, yo, I'm making this track. Would you want to rap it? And then and the Mac basically penned it, called it a Hellava. It was like that. So and then what they did was like they shopped the demo, and it got a lot of interest, and obviously Gasoline Alley / MCA was interested. So when that happened, I guess it worked out to where Mac, his name is Sean. His real name is Sean.
Yeah.
Sean McDuffie. So he was like he basically they were interested in getting him, but he was like he didn't want to go by himself. So it's like let's be a group. Let's you be my like side high,
Yeah.
man,
Because that's how it was. It was always, Groups was popping back then. Groups was popping. Yeah.
But as soon as it got out, it was like one of those. It became a kind of like a hit. It's crazy
That's
stuff.
crazy. It did. It was. I saw it on the box a lot. You know.
Yeah.
I saw it on the box a lot.
So
you never seen that video, Gabe? Hellava?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
Yeah. So I
that
mean,
shit's crazy.
Yeah.
You gotta pull that. They got the ill cross covers. What mall was that at?
It was at the Santa Fe Springs Mall. It's not there anymore. It's
Yo, that
gone.
shit was. Them niggas was.
Well, some of the dancers, the dancers that used to dance for the group, were from Soul Train and shit like that too. So
that's why I loved it. That's why I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I mean, for what it was cool. I mean, I only can speak for myself. I learned a lot from it. I got to meet some of my heroes on the tours and shit like that. I got to meet Nice and Smooth.
Wow.
Honestly, believe it or not, I met Julio G when he was DJing for Gerardo, because he used to DJ for Mellow Man Ace. Then he ended up DJing for Gerardo. This is one of those summer jams and shit like that. So it's like, it's crazy. But the funniest thing, because if you don't know who Julio G, so if you guys have Grand Theft Auto, he's Los Scandalous, or was it Los? He's the voice of the West Coast station on the
radio shit, right? Yeah.
For Grand Theft Auto. That's like that's for people who didn't grow up in LA. Julio G is one of the original KDAY mix masters. So he's like, so I'm sure people heard about KDAY. KDAY is it's like it's the first 24-hour station on the West Coast, literally in LA and stuff like that. Basically, the KDAY mix masters was like Tony G, Bobcat. Bobcat used to be it was part of Uncle Jam's Army, was also LL Cool J's DJ. Yeah, and it was part of LA Posse, right? Dr. Dre, so Aladdin, Joe Cooley. So Julio G was there. Eventually he became more known like for West Side Radio here in LA and stuff on 92.
Yeah, I know he was connected with Easy, right?
Yeah, so that's how he got into radio. I mean, he was in KDAY, then they left. And then before Easy passed away, he started a Ruthless Radio show.
Right.
And he brought back Tony G and Easy E and stuff. So he brought him back. He brought Julio as a DJ, but also starting as an honor personality and stuff like that. So Julio, like Julio was on the blue. He's the voice on the Blue Carpet Treatment on Snoop Dogg's album. You could see him.
Yeah, he has that. Julio G. Yeah. You know what I mean?
So Julio is a respected DJ.
He's the Don, dude. He's the
Don, though. He's from, so he's real respected. So that's like, so that's how I met him.
KDAY, bro, I when KDAY was in its heyday, I was living in Tijuana and TJ. And like, I had an antenna, and I used to take some foil, and we could hear it. It wouldn't be the clearest, but we could hear it.
So Gabe, you got to understand. So KDAY was an AM station, 1580 AM. So it's like in the daytime you could hear it clear, right? At least in LA, right? But when nighttime comes around 6 o'clock, they tend to turn the power off. Then you had to like hold the antennas. Yeah. So like you're literally like holding on and just listen to it, right? So but the craziest thing, the airways, like what Johaz was saying, it go all the way from San Diego all the way to like to like Bakersfield and stuff. Yeah. So, and they were the only. There was a station that were playing they were playing anything. Well, obviously, anything that was coming from the East Coast was coming to KDAY.
Yeah.
Plus, they would play anything locally. Obviously, Egyptian Lover, Uncle Jam's Army, World Class Wrecking Crew, King T, Toddy T, Ice T, right? But then, of course, they played Run DMC, Mantronics, Chill Rob G, El Cool J. But then they'll play like Debbie Deb and Nocera. But then at late night, sometimes they'll play some like high energy disco music and stuff. But so we kind of listen. If you listen to KDAY, we were influenced by that, and of course with the KDAY mix masters and stuff like that. So they broke hip hop in LA and stuff like that.
They did. Greg Mack. I'm sorry. Yeah, Greg Mack.
Greg Mack. I mean, Bobby Jimmy was so. I mean, so anyway, so I met Julio G. I met I met a lot of people like that, but I also learned a lot, which the saying is true, is industry rule 4080, the record. It's really, I learned a lot. I learned a lot. So, but yeah, that's how I got with Brotherhood Creed and shit like that.
That's ill. Cerrito boys.
Well, Cerritos. So your guys are El Cerrito. Because you guys are.
Oh, y'all Cerritos. Yes.
Cerritos,
Okay.
Right.
Is that like Long Beach? That's by Long Beach?
Cerritos is stuff. Cerritos is part of, we're like 15, 20 minutes from Long Beach. We're LA County, but borderline Orange County. So it's like, we're close, like we're close to Long Beach, Compton, Carson, and Norwalk and Hawaiian Gardens and stuff like that. So, so like we're like 30 minutes to LA, 30 minutes to Anaheim, like that. So whichever way you go in and stuff. So. But yeah, so that's how. Yeah, so a lot of people don't know I was part of Brother Creed.
Yeah, I know I understand KDAY's like history and how rich it is, the radio station. And if I was to ever get an opportunity to work there, I would definitely move west and bag up the house and go. Because
the thing is, KDAY, it was a hood station. The problem, the funniest thing, okay, is people want to hear like the story about KDAY, and so Tony G was the don of the KDAY Mixmaster. Greg Mack was the one who was on your personality. He kind of he wanted to base his own mixers. He wanted to have a DJ group that was rival to Uncle Jam's Army. Uncle Jam's Army. So basically, Uncle Jam's Army is the ultimate LA DJ group dance promoter. Like, so Uncle Jam's Army is like I said, is Egyptian Lover, Bobcat, Battle Cat. They were throwing jams at the LA Sports Arena. Unheard of. So if people Google Uncle Jam's Army, you would understand the magnitude of it. That's also kind of like during the radio days, Radiotron days and stuff as well.
Was that in the same era or like realm of fucking like the Wrecking Crew and all that?
Yeah. So like I said, Uncle Jam's Army was like obviously the big gangs, and then Wrecking Crew because Alonzo. So they were kind of like they were competing and stuff like that. So people Google. There's a Red Bull interview about this mini documentary on Uncle Jam's Army, and then the Beat Junkies. We have our own podcast called Building Bitter DJs. We interviewed Tony G, and he breaks it. Yeah, so we did a 3-hour podcast where he breaks down so if you like for you, Gabe, since you're in West Coast, especially want to hear about KDAY.
Yeah.
Look up Building Better DJs with the Beat Junkies and Tony G, DJ Tony G. I'll guarantee it breaks down the whole history that we grew up listening to, that you understand. Like Tony G really is the man, like honestly, for a lot of DJs on the West Coast, besides Dre and Egyptian Lover, in terms of radio and putting this, like Tony G is that blueprint. For real. So you ask someone like Battle Cat, he will tell you Tony G's big brother. Ask Aladdin, talk about Tony G. Ask Joe Cooley, he'll talk about Tony G. Anyone that's
was he a Mexican cat or a brother?
He's Cuban.
Oh,
he was original. So Tony G and Julio Jr., they happen to have the same last names, but they're not brothers. But they are like they're brother, like bigger brother, older brother, but they're not related. Tony G is originally came from New York to Miami to LA.
Okay.
So he pretty much, all the records that you hear on that's on the shows, like from New York, that's Tony G. He brought everything that's like LL Cool J, Mantron, anything, like I said, that was playing from New York. Like, he got the records, brought it to LA. It's because of Tony G.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I hope maybe someone
drop the jewel on us right there.
I mean, that'd be a great opportunity for someone to put together a KDAY documentary, because I think that's the story that definitely needs to be told.
Well, I mean, there've been talks left and right. I do know Julio G's writing a book, so that's really dope. Because if anyone's gonna do it, like, Julio G's the good man, is the right man to do it. But I know there was like Tony A. There's another DJ by the name DJ Tony A.
I just started following him.
Yeah. So he has he used to DJ for High C. I'm Not Your Puppet. So
yeah.
So he used to do also the mixtapes for Rhodium Swap Meet mixtapes. So Dr. Dre used to do these mixtapes. So at the Rhodium Swap Meet, after when Dre started becoming more bigger, like basically a lot of NWA shit was done on the Rhodium Swap Meet mixtapes. Google it. You hear these 4 tracks mixes, and you see Eazy-E rapping, Ice Cube rapping, Dre's doing all these mixes and stuff like that. Rest in peace to Steve Yano, a Japanese American. It was the guy who was selling records at the Rhodium Swap Meet. And basically, if you want to get the records, he was the one that you had to go to. And Dre was doing the mixtapes for him. So Google Dr. Dre Rhodium Swap tapes, and you might hear, when you hear it, you might hear Dre or Easy. So shout out to Steve, or shout out to Yano. Steve, a Japanese American. Steve Yano, rest in peace. When Dre and and NWA started becoming more big, he stopped doing mixtapes. Tony A took over and finished up all the mixtapes. So Tony A. He's a Latino. Chicano from
his platform is growing right now too, man. He's shining on the light on a lot of Chicano rapping, totally, throughout the West Coast,
Totally. So, but so go on. I'm sorry.
What's the, like, kind of just a segue? Like, what is the pathway for artists locally in LA or in California in general in hip hop? Mostly everyone now is kind of like blogs or internet or trolling somehow, using the internet to market. But is there a safe space for like navigating and discovering new talent out of the West? Or is that kind of like also like just by fate and chance that you might come across something great?
I mean, right now it's almost like it's almost going back again to the Wild Wild West. Like, when internet started cracking, with like you said, with the blogs, things keep on changing more quicker. It was one thing too, and Johaz can attest this, because we're from the 90s independent era and shit like that. Things had changed a lot, and you had to learn how to adapt, whether you like it or not. And like,
you have to adapt. You have to adapt.
You had to almost have to reinvent yourself and stuff like that. So, but the thing is, I mean, there's not to sound biased in terms of anything. Joe, I think Joe has talked about it before I jumped on and stuff. So like, California is big. When they think about West Coast, they think California. They're not, but just West Coast, you're thinking about Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, and then there's of course California. But California itself is just a big, you got Northern California, Central California, and Southern California. And Southern California is big enough. You got LA County, you got Orange County, you got San Diego County, you got Inland Empire, you got the Ventura County. So it's like, it's spread out like that. So, but in all honesty, you still have to go to LA proper. You have to go like to Hollywood and LA proper to do the to go to real shit, because even cats from San Diego had to go up. If you're not even if you're in LA County, you still had to go to LA.
You gotta go to LA. You had to go to be taken serious. You had to go stomp with the big dogs in LA, man. It didn't matter. It don't matter if you didn't rip a stage in LA or get like a stamp. Like, it meant everything to get from Rhettmatic. For us, it was like, for Rhettmatic to be like, yeah, I like that song or something. that shit was like, oh shit, okay, it makes you hungrier as opposed
so
to like,
so the flip on that. So when him saying that, same thing for me. Like us, like whether the Junkies or the Visionaries, we had to go to LA. We had to get, you know, because they look at you as like, who are you? You know, it's almost like on some 8 Mile shit. I hate to say it, like, you know, but the difference is,
go to Project Blow, all that shit, man.
You go like, okay, like it's either you go to, okay. So there's like this. There's different eras. Obviously, there's like if from my you know, because I'm dating myself, so I'm like I'm 51, right? So I got, you know, obviously I got to grow up listening to KDAY and stuff, but I wasn't old enough to go to like all the Uncle Jam Army parties and stuff. But I had older brothers and sisters to go to that shit, right? They tell me about it, right? Eventually I started hearing about, you know, then of course there's Radiotron. There's Radio and Radiotron and stuff like that. World on Wheels, of course you can't go. World on Wheels and Skateland. That's like Crip or Blood territory. But that's what you hear. That's all the parties were at.
Yeah, that's where it was at.
That was like in terms of when you hear like, you know, LL Cool J, like at World on Wheels. But he would wear, there were stories about LL Cool J wearing his Kango. He had a red Kango, but he was in a Crip neighborhood. They took his fucking, but he couldn't do it. Yeah, man. It was crazy. Look, here's the craziest thing, Gabe. During those days, it got you for real, colors. I'm sure like the same thing. Like I'm sure like I found about Chicago, what the gangster disciples and can't wear a hat, you know, left or right.
Yes.
You can find yourself in a suspicious place. Yeah.
Totally like that. So, but the funniest thing, the craziest thing about LA, and Johaz can tell me, can attest to this, is that a lot of gangsters were listening to hip hop.
Yeah,
straight up.
Yeah, so Project Blow is in the hood.
It's in Leimert Park. It's in the hood. It's well, you have to understand. So like even growing up, like a lot of like someone like say MC8, if you ever hear him in interviews, grew up listening to BDP. You got Jericho's Crips or Bloods, but loving BDP, rock him.
Yes.
You know, like of course they love the gold chains and shit, but yeah, cats were like, you know. One thing about, I would say West Coast, California, is when a lot of shit came, obviously when it came out West Coast, it came out to California, we're like a couple of years late. Hip-hop, right? So whatever we thought, you know, was, you know, like everybody, anything that was dope, we liked, you know, everybody loved it. The thing was just like, you know, and then of course California would make it, you know, would put their own twist on it. Yeah, we're not, you know, because New York is the epitome. So we don't get we were already listening to funk and whatnot and new wave, but they were already, you know,
beyond that shit at that point. Yeah.
So I mean, like when you listen like NWA, that's still hip hop shit. Even though it's talking about gangster shit, it's still hip hop. They just you know, we had like King T was like honestly our first, besides Ice-T, King T was our first MC that got respected in New York from the West Coast. On the real.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, so I mean, we had, you know, of course people kind of tripping on LA Dream Team and stuff because at the time we all thought that Planet Rock was, you know, because it came from New York, it's like that.
Yeah.
And that's old to them already. That's new to us.
Like, that's right. Yeah, because what Dream Team, that song like dream. What did that shit come on, like 87?
No, that's like 85, 86.
Wow. But Planet Rock was out in like what, 83 or what?
83, 84.
So yeah, they was behind.
Yeah, we're behind. So like you gotta understand, like really things didn't get cracking until like 83, 84. Maybe 82, 83, 84, around that time. Mm-hmm. By 86, 87 is when it started really kind of, you know, full, you know. So yeah, so it was in the hood and shit like that. Yeah. So, but for us, like, you had to go to LA no matter, you know, even during the 90s, you still had to go to LA to get respect no matter what.
Did it stunt the growth of LA hip hop in some of those early years, those formidable years? Because I think from people like myself who were listening or catching on, our first experience was hardcore hip hop, gangster rap. That was like what LA was known for.
Unfortunately, but that's like, unfortunately, that's all, that's what became popular because it's like, because, yeah, you gotta remember, New York is the epitome. So they're kind of like, this is where a lot of the that's where all the West Coast, East Coast beef, because every time an East Coast artist comes to the West Coast, you heard the term California love. They gave him love.
Yeah, we always show love.
Always show love. But when cats would go to New York, and they're like, yeah. The thing is, if you get accepted in New York, that's just, like Johaz says, coming to LA is like, it was stamp of approval. And they would clown fools. They were like, yo, they kind of like, so there was always this resentment. There's always this like, like at the, which in many ways I understand, because it's, when you become the epicenter of shit, you tend to, like, okay, we're the shit, but you take things for granted. It's like how hip hop, like the crazy thing is now overseas, people appreciate the culture way more than we do over here.
Oh, absolutely.
We take it for granted.
100% more. Yes, 100% more.
You can ask, when you talk about hip hop, they only think about the rap. Over there, they're doing all four elements. They know all histories. They'll know your shit. Like line
for line. You go
line for line. Whether records, like videos, songs, or dances or whatever, they take it for like seriously. It's like, which I understand, because they're not around it. So it's like how you say, you're hearing stuff, secondhand. It's the same thing as the secondhand from New York. You're getting secondhand. They're doing the same thing too. So you're just getting whatever you can get and just holding on to it.
Right.
And you see, so it's, and it makes you, like, it really makes you kind of like, it's interesting how like even the average Joe over there that's into hip hop know more about the culture than our average Joe here. That's crazy.
And that's what to be honest, I was speaking with somebody about that the other day. That's the thing. That's one of the only things I don't really like that they push in hip hop, is if you ask a young kid that's he's a rock and roll artist, he could be 14 or 15, he'll know Mick Jagger, he'll know Bob Dylan, and he'll know with pride. And not all the time, but the narrative that they try to push in hip hop is like, oh, we don't care about that. The past is just about the future. And I think that kind of hurts the art in a sense, the creativity.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I always talk about, every time when people talk about this, I always say there's a generation gap and a culture gap per se, because the problem is, okay, of course, hip hop is still for its culture is still young compared to other genres per se, right? Hip hop is on some braggadocious, like, yo man, you can't bite my shit. You got to come up with your own styles. But now, as we get older, look at where we're at. Half of us have families. We have responsibilities, right? Yeah. And the problem is, some of our OGs, once they don't want to share that, because it's almost like you're giving up your secrets. And you don't want to show that, give that, because that's competition. Hip hop is based upon competition. And so it got to a point where, like, when the younger cats, they're so hungry, they want to be put on so bad, but the OGs are putting them down. But the OGs also at the same time are, if they're not consistent, they're out of touch.
Yeah, they'll get passed up anyway. The young boys they're gonna do what they do.
Right. And then and when the OGs want for help or whatever, the young cats are like, fuck y'all, man, because you shitted on me. So it's just shitted on me. Yes. And unfortunately, because some of us is that, it could be, whether we want to accept it or not, it's our fault for not sharing that knowledge. But we didn't know that too. But a lot of people are still trying to hold on to past glories, because you can't. As getting older now, it's good. It's cool that what you did before, but what are you doing now? Like, you can't be on some Al Bundy shit.
But
really,
like four touchdowns.
No, it's 6 touchdowns, Joe. It's 6 touchdowns. But there's some difficulty, I think, with I don't want to say aging artists, because they're like, well, if I evolve too far, then my fan base that likes me, they're gonna think I'm on some trying to stay like modern and follow the trends.
Well, that's here. Perfect example, Jazzy Jeff. Jazzy Jeff, he stick to his guns. Granted,
Yes.
of course, granted Jazzy Jeff's from Fresh Prince, but at one point went down and stuff. But he stick to what he's doing.
Yes,
and
yes.
It showed, and like Jazzy Jeff was the one that showed us, like when Serato first came out, like we were kind of like fuck that shit, keep it real.
Yeah.
When Jazzy Jeff shit, he was one of the first people to show us this Serato, and when he transformed and shit, I was like, dude, if Jazzy Jeff can do it, why can't we do it?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And he put in a word. He put it to us as like, dude, you got to keep on just, you got to learn how to evolve. But you got to do your thing. Don't try to chase trends. The problem is with hip hop, because of the braggadocious, if you're not blowing up, being popular and shit like that, it's the image and shit like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yo, look, quick. I got a question for you now. So, okay. So now, in 2021, how much would a pair of turntables cost?
Unfortunately, because of obviously a lot of changes and stuff. A couple of years ago, Techniques discontinued making 1200s.
Okay.
So before they discontinued, you could buy like a one turntable for $350, right?
Okay.
So you can get probably for like, if you buy a pair for like maybe $600-700, right?
So the point I'm getting at, I'm talking about how you're saying that Jazzy Jeff and evolving, because a lot of people, I see cats. Even I have a controller. I really try to practice DJing, but I don't know. It's cheaper to buy a controller.
DJ is expensive hobby per se.
Yeah,
it's expensive. But at this particular,
at your school, do you have the tables there at the Beat Junkie Institute?
Yes. So a lot of people don't know the Beat Junkies. We have our own DJ school, so it's called the Beat Junkies Institute Sound. So the thing is, it goes back to you were saying about like teaching, the next generation. We learned that basically, like, we were kind of hesitant at first to open up a school and shit, because it's like same thing. It's like, man, we're gonna show our stuff. But then D Styles was the one that actually came up with, like, why can't we open up our school? What happens to world champion boxers when they retire? They opened up a school or a gym, right? Not saying that we retired. We didn't retire. But it was like an because he still had, one thing what people have to understand in the music business now these days, you have to have different, not streams of income, but you have to do at least multiple things just to keep things going. And we launched a record pool. We launched like merchandise. We were thinking like, well, what's the next logical step? And so when we opened up a school, when he said, like, thinking that we're opening up a gym and stuff like that. And then the more we thought about it, it's like people were complaining about DJing, right? There's like, oh, no one's doing the art and shit like that. We didn't want to be like old fogies and be those old guys in the lawns and complain about shit and not do anything. So it's like it's either this, you're gonna complain and do nothing, or at least try to do something. So, and if we want to see our culture to survive, to move on to the next generation, we realize that we have to share the knowledge. It's like you're saying with each genre, like you said about rock, rock kids listening to 14, they're still listening to Rolling Stones and shit like that. Yeah. It's like us, dude. We have, in order for our culture to survive, to prosper and stuff, and to be in, like at least give it the right push, we have to share that knowledge. Granted, we have to also accept the fact that there's always going to be someone better than you, no matter what, like that. So once we put in that, like thoughts, like, you know what, sure, we can show our secrets, but they're not going to be able to do what I do still.
Exactly.
But we should not be scared, and you got to accept that you can't be number one all the time, even though it's
Isn't there, like, because I was talking with some people, like for example, and I'm not pointing him out, but Funkmaster Flex, right? He's been around on radio for 30, 40 years, right? And good for him, right?
Right.
Somehow still staying relevant. But it, like, isn't it kind of like not allowing the new, like, a new voice, a new sound to come in and, redirect the culture? I think sometimes that like I think there is a let me just finish this thought. There's a disconnect between the young youth, like the young culture now, and like you were mentioning, as far as like those who are overseas, they know more about the culture than Americans who helped start it, and I think that there's sometimes a disconnect because one, younger artists either don't respect the past artists that came, because I've talked to young artists who are just on their grind, and you can ask them like, hey, did you ever hear this? And they were like, why do I need to listen to that? They grew up on Kanye.
Yeah.
And I respect that, and that's cool, but I don't think that there's an appreciation for anything that happened prior to what their memory allows them to remember. And so, but then also I think that older representation, or those that carry the torch still, they're not allowing younger voices to come on board and be co-champions for the culture, which then kind of like spawns this resentment of all these old dudes, they just holding us back. And I think there has to be a way to cross collaborate, you know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The difference is because, like, again, you say there's some people that are saying quote unquote relevant. You got to remember, there's the culture, and then there's the music business.
Oof.
Culture, music business, right? Mm-hmm. Once you understand that, that's why someone like Funkmaster Flex, respect him because he's doing his thing, but he's in a music business, so he has to do what's, you know, he's like that. If you're business is totally once you get yourself outside of that particular machine or cycle, like there's a ecosystem that you can still have business, but you stick to, you know, like you may not be as blowing up like Hot 97, Power 106, or I don't know what's the station in Chicago. What's the
WGCI?
Yeah. If you're not in WGCI, right? You know, so you don't. And you got to remember too. A lot of our generation, once they get married and stuff, they kind of phase out of hip hop.
Yeah.
Right. And the only thing they can listen to is basically what's on the radio, what's on whatever was in front of them, TV, because they got responsibilities. Where people like someone like Johaz and myself, we still do this, even though we may have some other things. This is why I always say to some of the older cats that used to be, you know, that my age, that used to do this shit, like when they're like, oh man, you know, they don't know about the old school. And it's just like, you know what, dude?
I hate motherfuckers saying that shit.
I hate that too. I hate that too. I always point back to Jazzy Jeff and shit like that. It's like, dude, here's the reason why I tell them, like, dude, there's so much shit out there. When growing up, it was hard to find hip hop, so you got to go out and dig for it, right?
Word.
In 2021, there's so much hip hop, you got to go dig for it and look for what you like for it. There's no excuse. You got the internet. It's either you know how to use it and not be lazy, or you just.
You can't have no excuse.
No excuse, man.
I hate motherfuckers that say, yo, there's like the hip hop today is no good and it does. I'm like, you have to work for it. It's like
exactly. But they think they're at a point in their lives, they want things given to them.
Oh yeah.
And most of the time I always look at it, if you really love hip hop, because there's a lot of people our age too that still listen to hip hop, newer shit, you know, they're married. But again, once they figured it out, they broke away from, you know, now there's enough things for people that want to listen to, you know, you want to listen to that, get your turn up shit or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
You could do that. If you want to be that 70-year-old guy that in the club chasing the girls, go for it.
Looking like a weirdo, yes.
Yeah, no. But look, but the thing is that what I don't like is that it's like they complain, but a lot of them haven't been participating in the culture, and a lot of them, and I've really realized, and I've talked to some of my OGs, they're even realizing too the same thing. It's like, if you're not consistently doing something that you love to do, most of the time this is, you don't know about what you know about this and stuff. They're only remembering about that because that's their time when they're growing up, when they had no responsibilities and shit like that. Okay, straight up. Does like this, going back to some Al Bundy shit. Yeah, I was the shit back then, man. It's like, okay, but now you're like, oh my million. We hear this about with the DJ culture. Cats are talking about, man, Serato. Nah, man. Serato didn't do shit. Serato's just a tool. A lot of these people just stopped buying records. I mean, of course, with the industry and stuff, but still, people were like, you know, they got lazy and shit like that. you know, like they don't, you know, they say, oh, that's played out. You know, like hip hop is the only culture genres where at a certain age you're old.
You're done.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Every
yet,
other,
but yet,
ev-
the greatest, some of the greatest lyricists are our age right now,
yes, yes. Still
and they're
rocking
complaining,
shows.
and the younger cats are complaining about why won't they let them go? It's like, well, fucking get better. If you can do the same shit they're doing, they'll
Man,
let you go have it.
it's forever. Like Beat Junkies is forever. Visionaries is forever. This the actual culture of hip hop is forever. You know what I mean? The business is you're always gonna have different ways of it, but the culture, man, people are always hungry for that. Like you saying, Europe, they're still hungry for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You go to
For 10,
Japan, man.
15-year-old records, like oh shit, you know what I mean?
I mean, with the irony now is like now you got now that the younger cats like that they used to be young, now they're a little bit older. Now they're starting to go back. You'd be
Yeah,
surprising. You'd be surprised at how a lot of the, you know, obviously it's like some of their old schools Wu-Tang. That's the, you know, like that. Some of these young producers, Dilla and Madlib, right? That's crazy. But you have to remember the context is that they weren't exposed to a lot of things that we were at. So how do we expect them to understand? It's like the same thing of cats that grew up on James Brown. How do we expect? We
yeah,
weren't
yeah,
around that. But as we
yeah.
got older, we started listening, and once you get
Right.
mature, we start getting mature. That's when people understand it. But you can't force it down. The thing is, the problem is that I don't know if it's just you know, it's a generational cultural thing where it's like, of course, what you know about that shit, young book, when really just like, hey man, if you like it, try it out, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then at the same time, us is like, teach us what. Okay, there's look, I don't like everything, but I'm not gonna worry about something I don't like. I'm only going to
yeah.
concentrate on something I like.
Yes, yes, yeah, exactly, man. You have to. That's what it's about. Like worrying about who's fucking with you. Well, I'm not worried about who ain't fucking with me. You
Right.
know what I mean?
I'll say this though, like I have a 11-year-old son, and he's put me on to like a bunch of shit. Like he put me on Juice World, Polo G. He put me on like a bunch of like shit that he's listening to on his playlist, and I don't knock him for it either. Like he's giving me some terrible suggestions as well. But it's like I think older artists and older like fans of the culture need to be more receptive to like what's happening and not just immediately shut it down because it's like it doesn't fit into their scope of their nostalgic memory of what hip
Right.
hop represents for them, and so that's how they get left behind. They become dinosaurs.
Well, here's the thing. It's the same thing how our parents talk about our music. We're becoming our parents.
Yeah,
That's the same. And a lot of people don't think that way. Like, you have to understand. That's, ooh, did we just lose?
yeah, we
Did I
lost.
lose you
He
guys?
lost. Yeah, he lost Joe.
Okay. All right. But here's the thing, though, is that you got to, we can't compare, they're whatever they're doing. You can't compare, you know, like that's their thing,
Yeah,
you know, we have to cut that off and leave it. That's them. We might not agree with it, but let them do their thing. Let them do, that's what I would say. But, you know, again, it's a different generation, man. It's like, it's, you know, like I may not agree with all of it, but there's some dope shit out there if you
oh,
just
yeah.
really like, you know.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Is like because you were talking a little bit about transitioning from Serato and from the physical vinyl and the digging for those records. Like, how do you go about digging for records? I know they still have record pools and you know there's outlets to send music out. Is that how you find new records, or are you going through playlists or going through?
I'm doing. It depends what it is. So like for me, so I also have a Twitch show that play. You know, like I play, you know, same thing on, you know, I try to play all the new raw boom bap shit and stuff like that. Like whether it be Griselda or you know, well Rock Marciano's been around forever. So, but you know, but I mean,
I
but
know
he's
that. I'm so happy that he's getting his props, but he's been around for a long
no,
time.
like if people know him, he was obviously he was the youngest member for
Flip
Flipmo Squad,
Yeah.
but he's also part of the UN and shit. So, but like, see, a lot of people didn't know that. You know, that's what I'm saying. It's crazy. It's like a lot of people didn't know about Doom being Zev Love X. Rest in peace to Doom and shit like that. So that's what I'm saying. It's interesting when people found out like, oh, Doom, Zev Love X is Doom. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so I get it. There's obviously there's certain things, but you can't. Younger, I would have been like, well, what you know about that shit? But now I was like, since I'm older, it's like, that's cool. At least you're starting to listen. I'd rather you like, you know, if you really like it, you know, like do some research. Now you can't. There's no excuse now. Again, but like yeah, like you're saying about what you know um like when Kendrick first came out, when TDE like there's a whole like obviously Jaws's bar Dirty Science when Blue came out like that. So the craziest thing. So I obviously I knew about I knew X and Aloe when they're Eminon. They came the same time as us out. Like we in the heydays of West Coast 90s indie hip hop, like Stone's Throw, ABB and shit like that. Eminem was also part of that. We all Jurassic, Dilated. We're all Visionaries. We were all coming through the trenches. Raz was like Raz Kaz and Far Side. They were the generation before us, but they were still same thing, underground like that. We all came through this. We all came through the trenches together and stuff like that. And then when Blue, I remember when Blue started coming around, when Eminem do shows, they bring Blue was young and was being the hype. Yeah. He used to be more hyper, right?
Yeah,
Am I correct?
Yeah.
He was like, I was like, oh shit. They used to bring Miguel, to sing, with the show and shit like that. So.
Yeah, Miguel, he was like 15. We would have to sneak him in, performed, and sneak him back out.
Yeah. So the fact is that when cats, not to sound biased or anything like that, especially when the South was just running shit. And in some ways, they're still running shit, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything is in terms of like it goes in different times. Like Detroit at one point, but here's the thing. But one thing about the West Coast that for a while, coming up during those times in the 90s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, this still used to be sectioned off. It was like cliques and whatnot. And it was also the thing between the Old West and the New West, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Right. That. The OG. There was a time in the mid 2000s. It used to be like the New West was basically, it was like J-Rock, Bishop Lamont, Glasses Malone, and then over in the Bay Area might be Keek the Sneak, Balance. I'm trying to think.
What else? I mean, there was a couple cats. Yeah,
there was a couple of cats, right? Obviously too, like even on underground too, Strong Arm Steady, because Mitchie Slick is from Diego. Got down with Strong Arm Steady. The original Strong Arm Steady is basically Chase Infinite from Cell Scientific, Planet Asia, Kron Don, and then
Exhibit, right?
Huh?
Is Exhibit?
And then Exhibit jumped on later on, and then Mitchie. Yeah. Okay. The original was like the original, and Phil the Agony. The original Strong Arm Steady was Chase Infinite, Planet Asia, Krondon, and Phil the Agony, and then Exhibit jumped on, and then Mitchie also jumped on and shit like around that same time and stuff. Okay. And it was pretty much a conglomerate and shit like that. But those like the 3 or 4, and then eventually the face was. Then it became Exhibit, Mitchie, Krondon, and Phil, and then Exhibit obviously left, and then it became Mitchie, Krondon, and Phil, and then Asia and Chase were affiliates, but really they're still Strong Arm Steady members. There's other Strong Arm Steady members and shit like that, but you got to also think there was also that movement. There's like it was a little, but one thing once the Old West and New West, because the old they were like same thing. We were talking about the younger cats weren't respecting the older ones, vice versa.
Yeah.
Once they figured out the formula, why is the South is winning? Because everybody was working with each other.
Yeah, they all fucking with to this day. To this day.
So once that figured out, that's when where mainstream and underground started working together, and that's how like you see all these mishmash of other artists working together, like. Yeah. So I mean, that's when because Kendrick, if you look in the like Kendrick's second album, dude, he got like knowledge. He got Ninth Wonder. He got Knowledge. I think on either second or third album. He got cats were like starting like when Bishop Lamont was signed to Aftermath. He started. He's honestly, Bishop should have been Kendrick. Honestly,
Yeah, man. He was, man. His
really,
mixtapes was
Bishop was
killing
going to
it, man.
really the one was going to bridge, uh, 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 the old school, new school. Like he was not he was getting shit from Dre, but he was reaching out to get Pete Rock. He was getting Mad Lib. He was getting Black Milk. He was getting Battle Cat. Then now he was like having like someone like, you know, like just getting the underground cats and shit working with the overground. That was an exciting time, and that was honestly.
I remember that shit. All those mixtapes that fucking Bishop put out were next level, man. It had everybody excited.
Unfortunately, yeah, dude, because he would have been the one. Honestly, he would have been the one, but unfortunately, shit didn't work out how it was supposed to.
Didn't pan out like that, but damn, yeah, his records. You gotta, if you haven't heard those Bishop mixtapes, man, you gotta go revisit that.
Bishop Lamont, yeah. So, but anyways, what I'm saying about it is that once the West Coast understand what the South was doing, it went from, it didn't matter, Bay Area, LA, we all connected. It just doesn't matter all the way to San Diego. It didn't matter if you're underground, as long as you're dope.
Yeah.
And it started opening up a whole thing where, like, honestly, to this day, LA has been not LA. I wouldn't say LA, West Coast, but LA in general, because a lot of people still have to come to LA. I mean, Dilla moved to LA. You know,
I know you. Man, like, how did you meet Dilla? How did you meet Dilla?
I met Dilla the same thing when he moved to LA through you know, when you started working with Madlib, Stone's Throw and shit like that.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I mean shit, like officially met, like I met Dilla once when he still was Slum, you know, but that was just by passing. But once you know, he started working with Otis, with Madlib and shit like that, and then he started hanging, you know, obviously he was hanging out with Wolf, with Egon, with J Rock, with you know, B Plus and stuff like that. You know, those are the homies. So I'd be hanging. So that's. I officially met him at the officially met him, Frank and Dank at the Big Nasty Filthy video shoot.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how we, you know, because at the time, J Rock and them, you know, Jay was already hanging out with them and shit like that. So and by that time I started become, you know, when I had met him, then we started, you know, like they would come to my gigs. And then that's how they realized how much they were loved in LA. That's why Dilla started moving to LA and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to answer your story, like once the West Coast understand that, that's like there's a lot of things. That's why you would have, like, say Odd Future at the Low End Theory working with you know
Fly Low and all them Willow.
Like Flying Lotus working on Kendrick's album and shit like that. You know, the crossing over and shit like that. You'd be surprised. So that's and to this day, there's so much things going on over here in LA. A lot of artists have moved out here because it's, you know, the creative. Even cats from New York love it coming out here more than they did in New York, because the creative love over here.
It's the epicenter, man. LA is the epicenter. You know what I mean?
And it's because it's an entertainment thing, you know, and people say LA's Hollywood. Sure, it's Hollywood if you're in the Hollywood scene. Right?
The thing I loved about LA is that they focus, as far as hip hop, you know, the culture that we're in, they focus on dope. It don't matter about popularity. It's just like, if it's dope, it's dope. They didn't give a fuck, you know?
Right. For sure. So, I mean,
like San Diego, hip hop takes a backseat to the gangster shit. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's more because that's just, honestly, it's a gangster town when it comes to minorities. But you know, you get honestly, San Diego, you know, so like it's more like the more gangster you are, the more popularity you'll have with the music in San Diego. You know what I mean?
Well, same thing also, like if you're in the Bay Area, it's, you know, there are mob music. At one point it's mob music, and then hyphy, the movement, you know, like, so obviously whatever's what's more popular, but it does help that LA is it's a big city, a big county. So there's a lot of things. So there's so many within LA County. There's so many cities, there's so many pockets, so many scenes. So there's a lot of things that's always going. So versus San Diego and the Bay Area, it's a little bit smaller. So obviously certain things are going to be bigger. But when you're in LA, you don't have no time to worry about other things. You're just trying to be dope. That's what it is. When you're in a smaller setting, smaller community, there's only so much you can, things. So yeah, there's a lot of outlets in LA. That's that's where Johaz is right about.
Did you ever feel when you were talking about like sort of the old West, new West, like where did you feel like you fit into that? Because you had been in the business and the culture for a while. Did you kind of feel torn between that, or were you on one side or the other, or where did you think you fell into that?
I'm in the middle because here we're so going back again to where we're going up. So like I told you, like some 8 Mile shit. Now you guys got to also remember like on the 80s and stuff. Like so, here's the craziest thing. So Filipinos, being Filipino,
yeah,
there used to be a joke is like Filipinos are like the Puerto Ricans of the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
So, but Asians. So here's the thing: like Asians in general on the West Coast have been always been part of the hip hop culture. We just like
day one.
Since day one. I mean, basically, being that we're not outspoken, so most of the time we gravitate being DJs, graffiti artists, or dancers, whether you're b-boy, popper, freestyle dancer and stuff. There weren't that many Asian MCs at the time, Eventually, I would say the first ever, I won't say Asian, more Pacific Islander is Booyah Tribe.
Wow,
Booyah
so fucked up. Yes.
Rest in peace to Gangsta Rid. So, so the craziest thing. So, Booyah Tribe's from Carson. So they're Bloods, but before that, they were a well-respected popping crew called the Blue City Crew. So if you ever watch, Google and go to YouTube and look for Breaking and Entering. They were. It's a movie documentary on our early LA hip hop dance scene. You'll see Ice-T in there rapping and shit like that. This is like a prelude to Breaking, the movie Breaking.
Oh shit, I gotta check that out. I haven't.
Breaking and Entering, right? And you'll see the Booyah Tribe there. You'll see the Booyah Tribe popping there, so they were really respected as poppers, but eventually, of course, they're Bloods too. So then when they and then when they started rapping, they became the Booyah Tribe and shit. They got real respected. They were, because they were hardcore. They were doing fun, but they were, but at the same time, they're like, no one wants to fuck with.
I remember like reading or seeing some interview where they said they got into it with Tone Loke's crew and put hands on it.
This is a Glam Slam. Dude, this is Glam Slam, Prince's Old Club in LA. Right? Booyah Tribe versus the Loke Tribe. So Bloods and Booyah Tribe's Bloods, Tone Loke's a Crip. So Bloods and Crips banging it out at Glam Slam, Prince's Club and shit like that. That was a big story around town and shit like that. Booyah Tribe was not the fuck.
Come on, man. Them dudes big ass Hulk Hogan,
Right.
Offensive lineman.
Right. So here's the question. So, to even flip it back. So Booyah Tribe, obviously, first in terms of as Asians or Pacific Islanders, they're the first one to be put on, and they were on Island Records. Before that, Nasty Ness. That's my kuya, meaning older brother, in Filipino. So he's from Seattle. He's part of Nasty Mix Records, which is Sir Mix-a-Lot's label. So he was Sir Mix-a-Lot's DJ. If you listen to Eazy-E's radio, the record, listen to it to the end. Nasty Ness was that guy. Hey, this is Nasty Ness calling him. Calling in for the radio. Nasty Ness, Filipino. One of that's another another Filipino American that's like he was playing NW. He was a radio a DJ, but he was also had his own hip hop show in Seattle, making noise and shit like that. So,
but was that nigga was ahead of Two Live Crew MC?
Oh yeah,
or the Two Live Crew rapper.
Well, here's the go. Oh, that's that. I take it back.
I just thought about that.
Two Live Crew and Booyah Tribe. It was almost the same time. So I would say in terms of for popping wise, like for dance for culture wise, Booyah Tribe in terms of Blue City Crew as poppers.
Okay.
MC was Fresh Kid Ice. So what a lot of people don't know, Two Live Crew was originally from Riverside, Inland Empire.
Oh wow. What the fuck? Damn.
Yeah.
Okay.
They went to because Fresh Kid Ice and Mr. Mix were in the Air Force.
Oh wow, okay.
They put out, so their first record before they got signed to Luke Skywalker, they put out a record through McCullough Records. Like everybody that was like from NWA, Egyptian, Uncle Jim's Army. So if you watch Straight Outta Compton, the record plant, that's McCullough Records. That's where everybody get the records plant up. They had the record going through McCullough Records. So look out for the first record was called Revelations and stuff like that. So Fresh Kid Ice was the Fresh Kid Ice. Yeah. I would take, so between Gangsta Red or Booyah Tribe and Fresh Kid Ice were like the kind of the first Asian MCs.
Okay.
There were not many Asians. And then it happened. And then eventually when they did a show in Miami, that's when they stayed out there and shit like that. So, but they're from, Two Live Crew is originally from Riverside, California.
Oh, wow. Dope.
Yeah.
Dope. So, I didn't know that.
But yeah, so going back to the thing is like where like I said, growing up in the 80s and stuff, also, and Johaz knows it because again, San Diego's is almost there's a big Asian Filipino community in San Diego because especially the Navy, military, a lot of Filipinos were in the Navy and stuff, but in LA and stuff like that. So we were all in pockets, like everyone grew up to listen to hip hop, but it was like, again, you had the black scene, you had the Mexican, the Latino scene, you had the Asian scene and shit like that. Everyone was listening to hip hop, but they're all separated and stuff like that. For me, growing up listening, like I've always like, man, it's cool what we're, being cool over here, but if you want to see the real shit, gotta go to LA.
Yeah.
And once we left the bubble and started going over there, and during that time, it's mostly blacks and Latinos, some whites. Very rare you see any Asians. So when they see people like me going over there, like, who are you? Where you from? Like that. Yeah. And they sweat you hard. And they kind of course, they call you and she's like, what's this Chinese boys doing? I'm not even Chinese. I was like, what's this Chinese boy? But when you go out there and show and prove, they're like, oh shit. Yeah. It always mattered that it was skills. Sure, they clown you for like, Johaz, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure it's the same thing in San Diego. You make a clown and shit, but if you're dope, I was like, okay.
Yeah, they gonna give you a pass, man. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is, showing and proving, man. First time I went to Project Blow, man, we got house. You know what I mean? And that made me want to come back. I came back the next week, like, nah, fuck that, man. We coming up in this bitch and letting them know. But like the first night, man, woo, we couldn't even get out of a line. Every time I rap, the motherfuckers, blah, 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 I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so so back again, it's like where I've been lucky to see the birth of at least when hip hop came to the West Coast at an early age and stuff. Like so, I like to think I'm between. I grew up from the old school generation, but I'm also part of the new generation. That's when started things changing. So I'm in between. I like to think I'm in between.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I'm still a fan. That's what it is. It comes down to this that I love this. Even if I'm not doing this professionally, this is I love this.
Still love it. Still love it, man.
Yeah.
Have you thought about doing a memoir yourself?
What's that?
Have you thought about doing a memoir about your own life?
Nah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, if someone wants to write it, if they want to interview me, that's one thing. I don't know. I don't think I'll have the time or the patience to write something about it. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't mind sharing and stuff because I look at it. To me, I'm still a student. No matter what. So
right.
The guys would tell you I'm a nerd when it comes to our culture and stuff like that. Like I really like I study what's going on right now. Even things I don't like, things I don't like, I'll let someone handle that, whatever that's whatever. Like, but for something that's what we into, I've always kind of like I'm always still a student. Even if I'm considered now an OG, I'm still a student. I'm still learning.
You gotta be a student first, man. You gotta be a student first, man.
And that's the thing is just that keeps me still having the love for the culture instead of trying to. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's the culture and then there's the business. I'm in the business, but I also got to remind myself, why do I do this?
Exactly.
That's what keeps me going. I mean, that's why. I mean, for people are in our generation now, it's like, again, it used to be an image thing. Now it's like, fuck it, get a job and still
Yeah.
pay your bills while you can, then on the side do what you love to do.
Man. Yeah,
like
it's
we're now a grown man hip hop shit.
Yeah,
that's it.
Ain't nothing wrong with clocking in if you have to, man. You know what I mean? I think that's what it is. Like, that's why a lot of people flame out, because they're into it strictly from a financial standpoint. You know what I mean? They never was, their heart wasn't into it. You know what I mean? Because if it was, at least for myself, if it was just strictly off money, I would quit a long time ago. You know what I mean? Like, I do it because I love it. I love to hear Rhettmatic spin. I love to hear J-Rock spin. I'm gonna always get juiced up, hyped for that, no matter what. You know what I mean? So, and that's what I think separates the dope artists. Like, even though, like let's say a guy like Kendrick, obviously he's getting dope, but I think he would still be rhyming whether he was getting paid or not. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I think that's what people have to understand. It goes back to what you're saying, Gabe, is like, you hate it when people talk, like, it's like, if you really truly love the culture, you still try to you'll find it a way, one way or another. You can't complain about it.
There's so much shit out. There's so many ways to find shit. I got 2 teenage boys, man, and they show me shit. So much shit, you know what I mean? I'm like, how y'all find this? They're like, oh, there's so many channels to find shit. You know what I mean? It's so they got their own world. You're like, damn, what is that? You know what I'm saying? But there's no excuse. There's no excuse, man. There's no excuse.
Yeah. So, but before we leave, what is this past year for you? I know there's a lot to be said, but how have you evolved as into the work that you're still doing? I know you're doing a Twitch show. A lot of DJs, like we saw, like D Nice, he evolved into being this huge Instagram DJ, like clocking like 1 million views. And a lot of our DJs here in the city, Chicago as well, have moved on to social media platforms to continue to grow their name and grow their brands. What about yourself? How have you evolved during these past 9 months during this shutdown and without having venues or spaces to go to? How have you been able to fill that void?
I mean, well, luckily, like for, we have a brick and mortar DJ school and stuff. We had to shut down. We had to kind of transition to online. So that helped a lot. Like, a lot of things had to go online. Granted, and then now, when people started DJing, obviously, everybody was going either on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. And then eventually, when we discovered Twitch, that actually became the best thing right there.
Right.
I mean, there's some people who are doing a great job. Being on Twitch is like being on a radio show. I mean, we have to consistently work, which is great. But like, for me, I only kind of use it as therapeutic. I don't, because people, they're the same thing too. You got to work for it, like to get to get tips and shit. We don't get the same gigs unless you get to a point where you get hired to do, your streams. And people, we had to learn how to do things like what is streaming? We had to get cameras, learn how to be a producer, editors and all that shit. So it's like how we're doing right now. We're all doing. Everybody had to learn how to adapt and transition. Again, it's like you have to and it's still like the wild wild west. We still had to figure it out. But for me personally, luckily that I still have the school that use it to help, like some income to come in and stuff like that, and some other stuff. But I'm a little bit lucky, but it's still, at the same time, I'm still struggling like anyone else. But Twitch for me is my way of just as therapeutic, because I get to play music. Like I had my radio show transition to Twitch. Johaz knows this, because we have Junkie Radio and Dash Radio, but once when the pandemic hit, Dash Radio kind of closed their studios for a hot minute, and then it get to a point where it's like, well, what are we gonna do? And then I get to I can do this from the home, but I obviously had to spend money to upgrade, to do all this stuff, but then I had to figure out how to, instead of doing audio, I had to do visual. So how do I do this? So it's, again, you have to kind of figure it out. And once you figure it out, your niche, You just stick with it and then build from there. And it's same thing. Some people have bigger names. Some people actually work harder and shit like that. But a lot of it has to be organic, at least in my opinion. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier off the air before then, like, you know, how you were asking, like, well, how are you going to do it? Do you think touring and all that stuff? And I know Johaz is an incredible performer to himself like that. And, you know, but to tell you the truth, like, a lot of people don't know if they don't tour. Touring's, yeah, when you're young, it's fun. But as you get older, it's grueling, man. It's really grueling, you know? So you know, and I kind of like being at home right now, like, cause, you know, I mean, but at the same time, I do miss traveling, but you know, but I don't miss all the BS sometimes that goes with it. But that's part of the business. But like talking to Be Real and Bobo, you know, because, you know, Cypress, they're able to transition from their things. So Be Real has his own podcast, you know, Be Real TV, all this stuff, Dr. Green Thumb stuff, able to transition. And the same thing when they perform, or like that, they had to do with, like, you know, like live stream and shit like that. They able, you know, they had to adapt. They can't, because most of their meat and potatoes is touring too. But they had, once they learned how to adapt to it, they were like, you know, I may, you know, I'd say I'm very lucky to still be able to do something. You know, I may not get paid to some of my other friends or associates or contemporaries, but I you know, I'm still
above water.
And just still doing it, and I'm doing it because it's therapeutic and I love doing it. So,
man, we need that type of energy in the world, man. We really appreciate you, you know, giving us your time.
No,
you know,
I wish we could talk about. I know. I mean, I'm glad. Hopefully, I answered some of your questions in terms of the history of at least West Coast. I know we didn't talk, you know, about Visionaries and all that stuff, because I'm sure you wanted to talk about that and Junkies, but, you know, but I'm glad we talked about the history, you know, because, like, I'm sure, Gabe, you're breaking some of this stuff. You're like, oh, I didn't know this and stuff like that, and I want to share that and stuff like that.
I think it's and I think that's kind of the one we were discussing, like the vision of the show was for people like myself who kind of have like a surface understanding of some of LA or West Coast. And, you know, like, I know a lot of the bigger names that have played a part in that conception of the hip hop scene there. But like a lot of the stuff you mentioned tonight, I have no idea, which then drives me further to look, you know, go watch Breaking and Entering and, you know, look into some of these acts or these DJ acts that came out during the 80s and 90s who influenced others like yourself. So I think
I'm just like, you know what I'm saying, like Johaz and myself and other, I'm just part of the, you know, like, this is, I'm telling you from my experience. There's other people who can tell you some of the, you know, like, we may have all the same similar experience, but some of us might have certain things in more deep. My history in terms of course is later on in terms of, but I'm remembering it from at least as a fan, as a cat that loved this culture, like watching, like as a 16-year-old kid, like, oh shit, this is, what is this, like that. So but yeah, you know, I love this culture. This culture saved me for sure.
It did, man. Me too. You know, West Coast is kind of like a tree, man. Like, everybody's from the same tree, just different branches. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It all connects. Like, the movers and shakers all come from a certain umbrella. It's just different branches. But that's how I kind of like describe stuff. Like, everybody fucks with everybody in some kind of way. You know?
Yes. One way or another. We're all connected. Like, he's right. We're all connected one way or another and shit. And it's, you know, before, you know, when we're younger, of course, it's competition, but like as we're older, it's family now, because this is it. Oh,
yep, we missed a lot, lost them too. But you finish your thought.
Yeah, but it's family. It's you know, like, at least we support. You know, if it's not family, at least to say, hey man, support, respect, do your thing, man. Because you know, don't have time. We don't have, you know, the term player hater came from the Bay Area. Hater came from the Bay Area. So shouts to E40. And, you know, like, seriously, dude, E40's king of slang and shit.
I hope he writes a book, but God, I hope, God forbid, he doesn't write in his slang or no one can understand what it says.
But you know, like, yeah, it's like, we're at a point now. It's like we have to support each other. You know, like, that's if only it's the same thing with the culture. It's the same thing for us is like, if, you know, we have to, you know, if one of us wins, like Johaz wins, if Aloe won, when Aloe became a great singer, he's an incredible MC, but he reinvented himself and became a great soul singer.
Yeah.
Shit like that, you know. Shit, I don't know if you know. So Mayor Hawthorne, he's originally from Detroit, moved over here. He's part of a group called Athletic Mike League with Buff One and 14KT.
Oh yeah, you did an album with him, right?
Yeah, well, he used to be a DJ name. His DJ name was DJ Haircut, and then he transformed to being Mayor Hawthorne.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's what I'm saying. When he moved out to LA, he became Mayor Hawthorne and shit like that. So I mean, it just shows you, like I said, there's a lot of rich history. There's a lot.
God damn it.
I know. There's like even their history with Detroit and LA. There's like, again, with Dilla and Madlib and shit like that. There's a lot of history, man. San Diego and LA has a lot of history. So there's yeah.
I would love to have you back once we start to get some more episodes to really talk about your journey. But I think tonight it was really special to just kind of for you to share a lot of information about the early beginnings and starts and some of the history in the middle of some really fine artists and MCs and DJs. But I know we did. I think we just. I'm glad that we did this, Johaz. That we just sort of naturally let the conversation steer where it went, because I think we learned a little bit something tonight.
Well, I'm glad. Well, it's an honor, guys. I'm glad that be your first guest on your podcast.
We appreciate it. Well, we do have a wish list, so maybe you can help us with our wish list. I'm just going to be bold and ask for help.
Okay, what wish list is that?
our guest wish list. Maybe we'll share with you.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hopefully I can. I mean, you if you want Blue, you just talk to that guy.
Oh yeah. We discussed. Yeah, he's on the wish list. Yeah,
that's good.
But either way, but thank you so much, Rhettmatic, man, for joining us here on the first Pick Your Brain podcast with Johaz and WeekendGabe. We'll definitely be on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, and we'll get it out there on Audio Mac as well. So we'll definitely put it out there, make sure everyone has access to it. Then don't forget to give us a follow on Twitter at Pick Your Brain P. Apparently there's a number of Pick Your Brain podcasts out there, so but it's all right. But we're unique, so we'll stand out from everyone else. But thanks for joining us here on this first episode. Johaz, anything else you want to say before we close out?
Yeah, man. It was good building with Rhettmatic, man. He kind of exemplified exactly what we're trying to do with this podcast.
Absolutely.
Man. I appreciate you dropping jewels on us as always, and we'll be coming back soon.
Definitely, absolutely. We already got some guests lined up, so we're definitely gonna be bouncing back really soon. So appreciate it. Everyone have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks,
guys. I appreciate you.